Today is January the 14th. This is Jamaica Selectboard. And it is 7 p.m. So the first order of business is to call for any additional late additions to the agenda.
I'd like to make a quick report from the Transportation Committee.
Okay, hold on. Okay, any other additions? Next item is to approve the minutes of the December 10th Select Board meeting. These were sent out electronically, plus they're in your book. Has anybody not had time to look them over? We're all good for that? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor of accepting the motions as the minutes as presented? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes of Monday, December the 10th carry.
Seems like a year ago.
It could have been.
Like last year almost. Yeah.
All right. The next item, of course, is the usual timesheets for the Office of Lister's Highway Transfer Station and the Select Board orders. We'll do that at the end of the session, as is our usual. First order of business is number 5, really review and sign the certificate of highway mileage. This is a form that we get from the state of Vermont. It's the Division of Policy Planning and Intermediate Development Mapping section, for those of you keeping score at home. And basically, it's a statement of our mileage, the roads, and what they're broken down into for the town. We need to submit this to the state. I've checked with our road foreman, and we have not grown any new roads in the last year. So I will make a check mark where it says there have been no changes in mileage, and then those of us who are here tonight need to sign it. And then we'll put this in the mail tomorrow. There is no
Have we
change.
changed any from 4 to 3?
None, no, not this year.
And we haven't lost any.
No, we know where they all are. We haven't grown any new ones. It's just a routine, but like I said, they need to keep track of that, and that is a major contribution to what we get for compensation for our mileage. Okay, the next order of business, we have a contract from Rescue Inc. that actually they call it the Executive Summary Service Delivery Module, or no, model rather. And there has been a change in the way they do things. I think I've explained this before, but let me go over it again. They're now basically invoicing us for 3 years in a row. And what happens is this year, the monthly invoice amount is $2,494.35. 2021, it will be $2,519.36 and one payment at $2,519.39. And for the fiscal year, contract year 2021 to 2022, it's going to be $2,548. What's happened is they fixed this on the population, and this year the assessment is $2,892 per person. Next year, $2,921 per person. The year after that, it's $2,950 per person. And that's the contract that they put together. So it goes up, as does everything. But this is...
So the cost is going up, not the population.
That's correct, according to the U.S. statistics, our population is now.
Mhm.
But anyhow,
So is this locking us in even if the population does go up? Is it?
you know what? I don't see a caveat in here for that. It didn't occur to me that we're going to suddenly have a bunch of...
Well, that's what
We
we're
could.
working on, right?
Yeah, we should do that. As long as nobody dies.
Right, that too.
At any rate, I think this is a reasonable projection. You checking the audience for pregnancy, is that what you just said? Anyway.
No comment.
Okay. So, this is the basic way it works for these guys for years and years. And other than that, those are the big changes. They're going to do it for a 3-year term.
Do you have next year's dollar amount?
29.21 per person.
What's that?
Comes to a total of $30,000. This year's a total of $29,932. Next year it'll be $30,232. The following year it'll be $30,532 for the year. again, computed on a per capita basis. But you didn't ask.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, I do too.
This is increasing, it says in here, calculated per capita, increasing 1% per year for the contract period, subject to the terms of the agreements, of course. Their fiscal year 21 and 22 are based on the 2010 census numbers for planning purposes. They are subject to population data released in the 2020 census. So I guess they're suggesting that come 2020 census, that may change. Again, the assessment is the same. It's a body count that may go up and down. Which, when you think about it from a very cool perspective, this really is an incentive for Rescue Inc. to keep us all alive. So we should look upon that as positive.
we have them.
That's why we keep them. Yes. So if, with the instructions from the board, I will sign this and send it back to them tomorrow.
I move that we accept the contract for the next 3 years with Rescue Inc.
I have a
Second.
Move it. I have a second. Do you have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Any opposed? Hearing none, I will put this in the mail to them tomorrow. All right. Next item of business. We have been working on or around this new sign ordinance now for several months. We posted it in accordance with the state rules of doing these kinds of things and received 0 comment from the public. So we're assuming everybody must like it, or let's just assume everybody likes it. In any case, it's the way the law reads, it goes for like, I think 90 days. Am I right on that, Sarah? 90 days? Yeah. And then it becomes in place. The thing that we don't have on this is we have not appointed an administrator. Now, administrator does not have to be on the select board, but I haven't had anybody beating my door down to become the administrator of the sign ordinance. In the absence of a human doing it, it becomes a collective of humans because the select board then becomes the administrator. The tricky part of that is, should there be a dispute between someone who would like to put out a sign and the administrator, the resolution of the dispute rests with the select board. Therefore, if we are the administrator and we are the adjudicator of those kinds of things, it doesn't look very good. So I would be interested in somebody stepping forward until the time I have a volunteer for this position, or several volunteers from which to choose. The board is the administrator, so anybody who has any actions that they would like to do regarding signs, plus or minus, they would be coming to the board. But I would offer that as an opportunity for members of the Jamaica community who are interested in participating, that for whatever reason can't make Tuesday nights. Oh wait, this is a Monday night. Monday nights, we could certainly accept volunteers. Yes, sir.
I think it's pretty key, I don't know what the right word is, key that it be somebody not on the board. I mean, obviously we gotta take action now.
Because of the conflict.
Because
Exactly.
it's judge and jury on the same.
Yeah.
I would make a comment that it is, like you said, a great opportunity to be involved and probably very, very little work. I think since we've had at least only one that I'm aware of sign requests in the 10 months that I've been on the board. So I don't think it's too big of a, it wouldn't be too big of a burden for somebody to do this.
It wouldn't over a course of time. If we do get a request, it might take several hours to figure out what's going on and bring your recommendations to the board. So there may be a week or so of actually doing something, but for the most part, it would be standing by until we have that kind of request and making yourself familiar with the ordinance and how its implementation is managed.
Right.
So, anything else you'd like to add to that?
No.
Want to add anything?
Just that you're making a plea to our people out there on television land.
Think of it as an opportunity to start the new year in the service to your community. That sounds pretty good.
That's right.
Yeah,
Sounds
write that down someplace.
good.
Okay, so the ordinance is in place, based on the the law which says put it out for 90 days. If there are no problems, no one brings anything to us, then it is accepted. All right. We, who's representing the Arts Council? Hi. We had this listed as a request to modify the town hall usage agreement. And we've got the MOU, but we haven't had a chance to really flesh it out. Things have been changing. For example, I believe I heard today that the last 2 usages have not been paid for yet. And so there was some question that came up. Somebody brought up an interesting question of whether agencies that are making money from a particular activity should be given free ride. We just found out, and I wrote the number down, $120 of
Yes.
fuel used in 3 weeks. You have some
I'm
numbers as well?
actually the one in charge of the town hall
So speak to
right
that.
now. So that's actually what I want to talk about. As the agreement, or whatever you want, memorandum, is that the town would be paid $250 for a year's use. That's to cover the different bills that the town would have to assume. And exactly what you said was that we just got a not telephone bill, a light bill, oil bill. There are all of these bills coming in, by the way, anyway. But the one that I want to talk about is the oil bill. And for the last 3 weeks, the oil bill for the town hall has been $120. And the last 3 weeks has been the usage from your group using it for the different activities that you had, and that the town has not received any money for that. And I know your agreement is that you want to pay $250 per year for the usage. Well, if we go with $120 for 3 weeks, that means 3 more weeks, we're up to $240 already just in oil. And I know the next one is going to be February the 3rd. So we will be having to pay, and I think that what is really happening is that this is a 501c3 organization, which means that they're on their own.
You mean the Arts Council?
The Arts Council is a 501c3. They really have no physical connection with the town of Jamaica in terms of their standing. They stand on their own. But what I see is that they are asking us to fund their activities. They're asking each one of our town people who are paying taxes to fund the activities. I know the argument has been that it brings in people for the town. However, if anything does occur with income, it's going to be with our people who own stores or whatever. It will have nothing to do with our tax base as such. So I think that it really is not fair, because when we rented out to a family for a birthday party, we charge them, if they're if they're town residents, we charge them $25 to help pay. If it's another organization that is not connected, we charge $50 for that. And so consequently, people are paying for the use. And they're asking, if I'm reading this correctly, that they want to have up to 25 events per calendar year, which means that we're paying not only the oil bill, we're paying for electricity. And I was just reading in one of the other informations that there had to be cleaning of the sidewalks and the steps, etc., by the town. And that's another bill that we would be paying for, and we're not really receiving, if it goes through at $250. They really are not legally a part of this community. And so I think that we really need to look at either the payment or go back to what we have been doing all along. They are paying their own insurance, and that has been covered. But we do charge individuals or groups a fee for the use of the building, and I think that that's what we should do each time that they are using the building, to cover the town's expenses, our taxpayers' expenses. So that's, I wanted to bring those facts to our select board to have them understand what is going on really financially. And that the town is basically picking up the bill. And I think that we need to be reimbursed for that bill.
Thoughts?
I think one comment, I mean, obviously, like Judy said, it is bringing in some people, and how that wealth or whatever that generates is hard to track where it goes. But I think there's some expense to the building that is incurred no matter what. I would, say that, sidewalk maintenance in front of it and all that must be done anyways, but certainly the heat. I know in the past, most of their events have been during the summertime, so that's obviously different. But there is some, it was last year agreed to by the prior board to waive the rental fee for production during this past calendar year. So whether it's budget year, calendar year,
Sure.
appointed years or whatever, but that just counts.
Sure.
Do we heat that in the winter, or does it heat off?
Well, it's on when there's people there.
Is it completely off?
No,
I don't think
That's the
so.
bathroom is
the
off.
bathroom has heat so that the pipes don't freeze.
And I was there today, and the pipes are frozen.
Bathroom pipes are frozen?
Yes, they're frozen.
Was the heat on?
The heat was on.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
We found that if you open the hatch in the floor in the bathroom, that some of that heat will then go into the basement and
Okay.
I'm sure it froze.
That has not happened. Also, I have been told by someone who has been down and under that the tank, the water tank, is also frozen at this point. Whether that gets any heat, I don't think so. They said the insulation on that tank has fallen off. So I have called our person who follows up on that to let them know I haven't heard back.
Do you have a farmer's market on Sunday?
not this past Sunday. The next one will be
second
next
February.
weekend.
Next
This
weekend.
weekend.
Oh, okay.
We're taking early spring.
It was January 6th. Sorry, there was one, and then the
So
20th is the next
The
one.
two in December.
Yep, the second
And
the
that's
16th.
what my number is for the oil.
Yeah, I just am wondering about whether or not those things can be thought out in time for their.
Yes.
farmer's market.
Well, actually, Tuesday, the 22nd, we have a big meeting
Exactly.
about the water.
Yeah,
So I'm working
not
on
the
it.
water, this is the water civic.
Right.
But you're having that in town.
Yeah, the town hall.
And actually on Monday, there's the Martin Luther King event.
Yes, there are three things going on. Sunday with you,
Sunday.
Monday is Martin Luther King, and Tuesday is the water discussion. So there is no water as it stands right now.
I said my experience is if you open that hatch that goes in the basement from the bathroom,
Yeah.
that then gets things
Circulating.
circulating.
I'm not totally sure that that will really solve the problem, because we have run this problem
Yeah.
for many years.
Last year I was crawling around and looking
Right.
at it.
It
Someone
fixed
ran
it
a bunch
once.
of heat tape and made
Right.
like an insulation sort of tent around it
Right.
all.
Right.
And it worked for till now.
So I don't know what the board would want to do. I do think that in essence, we are giving our 501c3 an allocation in our budget of really supporting them for their work. And I think that there's something not right about that situation. While other families who have birthday parties, etc., are paying.
But I guess our events are open to the public. So unlike a private birthday party where I wouldn't be invited,
But
but
it's still-
anybody can come to.
It's still use.
Okay.
It's usage.
Then I guess another question with regards then to the bank building. Is the heat on all winter in the bank building?
That's another point. Thank you for bringing that up, because what is required now, and I think that was in another affidavit that I had to do with that the bank building needed to be plowed and the sidewalks
Oh, the back
fixed.
part,
Yes,
we're gonna use that for
so that
parking.
there could be parking. So there's another expense
Sure.
that's added on to our board.
Well, her question about the heat, luckily Lou's here. Lou and I have had this conversation as well. And we found out how much it's costing us to heat that place at a minimum amount. And Lou, asking to weigh in, was gonna talk to the people in the historic about turning that off. What
Yeah,
do we
we've got
want
a
for
meeting,
numbers on
we've got a
that?
meeting Wednesday night, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But my gut feeling is that the reason we decided to let it go is because we didn't know how much it was gonna cost. And we thought, we know that it cost about $100 to turn the heat off at the beginning of the year, and another $100 or so to turn it back on. We didn't know what the cost would be to heat it versus those costs. And we found out that it cost more to
Yeah.
heat it. So,
$1,300, is that what we figured?
something like that.
Something
Our
like
recommendation is probably gonna
Yeah,
be,
so we're starting to get quite a few bills.
Yeah.
right, our recommendation is probably gonna be to turn the heat off
Yeah,
during the winter, because we do not use it during the winter.
yeah.
Well, the biggest concern is we don't want to damage the artifacts. But then again, you being the custodian of the artifacts get to decide.
Right, and we'll talk about that Wednesday night.
Because really, I think we understand that the waxing and waning of the temperature is the problem with artifacts, not just getting cold and staying cold.
Right.
It's going up and down. You're not using it anyway, so the logic might be.
Right.
But I want to hear what the Euro Committee has to say about that before we make a decision. But when we were doing all these numbers,
Right.
it was like $1,300, I think, is what it was for the year,
Yeah,
as opposed to a couple hundred to winterize and de-winterize.
right.
So that math worked out pretty clearly in one direction, but I want to hear, I'm reluctant to traumatize the artifacts. You guys have done such a superb job of producing a historical society, I don't want to say event,
A museum.
museum, that we can be proud of in the town. I don't want to trash anything, but at the same time, if we don't need to, $1,300 is $1,300.
Well, one of the things that was written in the minutes of December 10th, number 5, review of the Sunday Farmers Market, and it says here, the very last line, the bank building will need to be plowed before events, and the sidewalks should be cleared better.
Yes.
So there again,
I think
if there's no use for the town hall, why do we need to do the different sections of it?
I think the road crew just hits the bank as a courtesy.
routinely,
Okay,
yeah.
Just
In the
goes in and
conversation,
breaks it open, I mean, they don't plow for any specific reason.
Yeah, the only reason that they plow is in case there's an emergency like a fire or something. You know, you start building up the snow, engines can't get in and out. So the
So
idea
you-
was just to keep it plowed.
So even before the market, it had been
Yeah.
plowed before, so
Yeah,
we're not asking for anything special.
well, it was in here.
but we
Okay.
put it in there because we didn't know they were doing it. We were going to look into it, we looked into it, they've been doing it, we're in good shape.
Okay, so that's not an issue.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
But the other is an issue.
Yeah, Joel?
There is such a thing as the spirit of the town.
Yes, and that's a pretty hard thing to quantify.
It is hard to quantify, but you quickly quantify it when it goes away. The Historical Foundation contributes to the spirit of the town, And so does the art council. So the town has to decide really whether they want to relinquish this and what it's worth in dollars. I think it will be a poor town with less community involvement.
So then you're suggesting that we take it to the town on town meeting day?
Sure.
No, why would we have to do that?
I'm just asking what you suggest.
No, I'm suggesting that you consider it. How you consider it is up to you. If you think it should be brought to the town, or if you think the select board can resolve it. Either way, I'm just saying that I think it would be a loss to the town to not have that spirit of the town.
And to recognize that there's gonna be additional costs for having a building, whether it's the bank or the town hall, additional costs, and have that integrated in. Again, hard to equate, but a cost of heating the building, maintaining the building, maybe some additional XYZs
But
to have an event there.
If each time they come, that you come, because you're a part of the board, if you pay $50, which is the rental fee for a group that's outside of the town, or if the board decides to pay $25, that means every time that you use the building, you are helping to pay for all of the facilities. And obviously, the town will still be picking up a lot from the $25 each time or the $50 each time. But at least it's going to be more money than $250. So, and again, I think that this is a board decision to have to make, and maybe you may have to recuse yourself because you are on the board itself. I don't know.
I'm not
He's-
formally on that. No.
You're not on the board?
No, Tom is.
Yeah, I know Tom is,
Yeah.
but I thought you were on.
No. I mean, I've always been an advocate of community and whether it's business development, community activities. I think having the activities that are going on in the town hall are extremely beneficial. I've been to a number of state level planning meetings and things like that where people would just die to have a building, have a sense of community, have activities, have people engaged. That we should look at a way to offset this cost, but without throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And I know that the JCAC's had mostly summer events before, so it's never really been an issue. But I think it's great that there's winter events in there. And this last year there was no fee for the building usage, and this year they're proposing $250, and maybe it's more than that. I don't know.
I am aware that Wardsboro, in fact, have 501c3s go in there and pay all the time. So I know that this is not an unusual thing for the town to be charging.
So maybe it pays to evaluate what the cash intake is at an event like this. So is it possible would the event go away if they were required to pay more than they had? Or would they have the potential of growing in such a way that they could eventually pay a contribution towards operation of the building?
Let's see.
I would just going to point out
It's 10 minutes
501.
to a town meeting.
Not quite. We didn't invite everybody. We did invite everybody there.
It's open to the public. There's no motion. Sit here and talk about what we should do.
What would you rather do?
You tell me.
Yeah, I find myself agreeing with Joel that it's a valuable part of the community. 501c3 is really more of an administrative thing. Historic Foundation is a 501c3 now. And the only reason they're that is because it allows us to accept fundraising. So them being a 501c3 to me doesn't take that away from the fact that they contribute to the town. So I would agree with Joel that I think we're losing. If that would affect if they would say that we can't have winter events because we can't afford the oil, that would, I think, disrupt the community.
I guess one thing when you're saying, oh, you make money, for the market, the event, that the vendors pay a fee to be there, and then that fee then goes to the musicians that pay, so it's basically we're not making any money.
You
And I guess,
can't make any money on a 501c3. That is a non-profit stipulation of the federal tax code.
You can't make
You
money.
cannot make
Why don't you let
money.
her finish what she was saying?
You can't make money, but you can collect money.
Oh, absolutely, but what comes in has to go out.
Right, and here we're proposing this process.
and
Let's
so
let Pat
the
finish.
money that comes in for events then goes to posters, paying for the website, paying for musicians, the tables that we bought. Nobody on the board gets paid or anything. Nobody's making a salary or anything like that. So the money just kind of goes in. Some shows tank and we lose money. Other shows we make money, and so it kind of all evens out. And I guess we were hoping that in giving a yearly fee of $250 would alleviate, frankly, the nickel and diming of, oh, you were here the day before setting up, so that's $25. The day of the event is $25. You went back the next day to check and make sure everything was cleaned up, so that's another $25. And we were hoping that, a one-time fee for the use of the facility would alleviate that. I think, like other things like the Historical Society, doing the farmers markets this year was a trial, just to see how it went. And I guess if you're saying doing events during the winter doesn't work for you, I hope you don't say that kills the whole program. I hope at the least we can still do events during the summer.
I think that one of the things you just touched on would have helped. One of the things that we don't have is your financial statements.
Yes.
And if we'd had those, we could probably do a little bit more understanding of exactly what you just described about your money in going out and where it goes. We kind of require financial statements from people who are asking for money, and we didn't have one from you, so we're trying to figure out how best to do this, kind of working in the dark. So that might help a lot.
I guess the one thing, like the appropriations, we haven't actually asked for money. We're just asking not to be charged.
Well, it's kind of an in-kind contribution.
Somewhat, yeah, but I guess.
Yeah. You've been waving at us.
Rebecca Ohm, Chair of the Planning Commission. I was at 2 of the farmers markets for the whole 4 hours. Each time I was doing a volunteer work for the Button Up Vermont program for Efficiency Vermont. And I had an opportunity to talk to hundreds of people who were very, very explicit about saying what a wonderful thing that this was to happen in Jamaica. People from Connecticut, people from New Jersey, people from New York coming in and saying, wow, this is great. People coming in ski boots and their ski tags all flapping around. And they were thrilled. They were absolutely thrilled that this little town is perking up. And I think that it should be possible for people in JCAC and representative on the select board to be able to work out maybe some sort of little compromise for the town to support this during the winter for a few years, assuming that there are people that can coordinate it going forward, to basically give it a jump start. I think that that's important enough to the vibrancy of this community and to the attractiveness of it. I think it might be worth it. I, as a taxpayer, for one, would be absolutely thrilled to donate money to that.
I think that there is something in value that you're saying, but I don't think $250 per year is enough.
Reps from JCAC
Either they pay the 25, and this is up to the board to make that decision, not me, or the $50, whichever, but I do think that we need to have more money to cover than $250.
So then,
Just curious as to how much the budget allows for the Historical Foundation.
I don't know the answer to that right off the bat.
Well, it's rhetorical.
$750.
$750 for the year. What I would suggest, since this conversation has shifted from the last time we had it, that if you could take what we're discussing back to your crew and redo the MOU with what we're talking about. So we've got a little more solid numbers. There's certainly good arguments on both sides. And we just need to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, because we really didn't have all the facts, and we're just trying to understand that we just got through doing the budget, we managed to come in under last year's budget. So we'd like to kind of, because people got stung pretty badly with all the tax rates that changed last year. So we're trying the best we can to stick within some sort of I don't want to say austerity budget, but we're trying to keep it tight. If you could come back to us with that next select board meeting.
So you're saying you want more money, or you're saying you want us to pay every time we step into the building,
No,
or?
he's saying that he wants paperwork about your profit and loss.
So you want a profit and loss?
I'd like to see your financial statement.
Financial statement.
Exactly, so we know how much we're contributing. And I happen to agree that the idea that is a major improvement for the town. Now, whether or not we can actually document how many dollars we get, I don't know, we can do that. That seems like a pretty onerous task. But I think that we can all subjectively understand, because I've been at that a couple of times, and I really think it's a great idea. And I think the Historical Society is a great idea. And the Arts Council, these are all important things that this town is going to continue to grow and thrive, and I agree with that. Having said that, I also have in front of me a lot of numbers. And crunching the numbers, you pull the subjective out of it and try to do the objective.
Right.
So if you can give us a little bit more objective stuff, and then come back, and then we can attack this again. I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Yes.
As a board member, I don't think that this heating bill is what this is all about. Somebody thinks, and I'm not part of this, somebody thinks that the standing agreement shouldn't stand anymore. Now, I can understand if we have money for each one of these buildings. Is that a town building?
Mm-hmm.
We have money for fuel, for the library, for this building. Maybe we should heat the underneath of that one all winter, before the pipes blow up again. Personally, I don't think it's a huge amount of money that's going out there. I think that the summer agreement, whatever it was, I can't recall it off the cuff, but something about you guys cleaning it up for whatever.
Yeah, I have it right here.
I don't think that's a bad deal. I don't think the town's losing a bunch of money, if you use that a few times during the winter. I think we've just had the whole thing's been restored. It's a historical looking building.
Well, we're going to get later on in the
Yeah,
agenda.
we are gonna go.
We're going to speak to that too, because we've got some.
Got some problems there.
So as just a board member, I by no means am against, the way it is. Maybe something else, you've already said it, something should be worked out in the winter. But I'm on my second tank of fuel already. I'll bet we're going to burn some more oil in these other buildings. I know we probably wouldn't if it wasn't getting used, but what's our budget? $1.1 million?
That's up there.
$1.1 million and $240.
And I think
When we were
that's,
doing the budget, we weren't. We could have tightened it up more here and there, and we didn't. And what I'm getting at is it's not a huge amount of money that we're talking about right now. That's just my opinion on the board.
And there's only, there's 6 farmers markets? So there's in theory 6 winter events that
Yes.
require heat, so.
Yeah, or actually, there's the Martin Luther King
Okay.
event as well.
And that's from the Arts Council?
Yeah.
So it's not even a huge number of events in the wintertime that are drawing expense, like you said. I mean, and probably should be heating the building a little bit more if we're
One
freezing the
thing
pipes
might-
every other week.
I think that we just allocate more money for the
For
maintenance.
the heat and the maintenance and the bill for the underneath, yeah.
well, what we now know, which we didn't do, we know when we did the first one, is what it's like to run it in the winter. Because this is again, it's a moving target. We didn't have winter activities with which to compare when we were putting the budget together and when you guys were offering the MOU. So we're learning. And like you said, if we have to make this as a contribution to spring a little bit, pull something out of the budget to start the growth of this, to get going, as Rebecca said, get this thing started, that makes perfectly good sense. But give us your numbers, we can take a look at our numbers, and somebody needs to talk to Sarah about picking up the tab for the last, right, because we're 2 behind? We're 2 behind. That would help the case.
I don't know where that 2 is coming from, and forget the fact that I'm related. But there's an agreement here that says, so we're talking about the 2 events for January. There hasn't been 2 events. This minutes dated January 22nd, 2018, the select board voted to waive the rental fees for productions during 2018. So I'm not sure where these 2 events that people keep asking for money are, or what they are.
That was before we put the farmer's market on it. This was for events sponsored by the Arts Council predating the advent of the farmer's market.
I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't know what those events, when this is saying it's covered for the year.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about 2
That's
events.
right, I think you had 13 events scheduled for that year, as I recall.
Yes,
I would have to go look at the
Yeah.
website.
Part of what's happening, it's definitely, it's a moving target here. We're all trying to do the best we can for the town. Part of our job is to make sure that we're really taking care of the budget. At the same time, understand you gotta pay, you gotta pour a little money in the well to get it primed. I understand Rebecca's point, I think that's a valid one. Did you remember which, we're talking about, the 2 events that we're talking about?
What are the dates of the events that we need to pay
The last 2
for?
farmers markets.
The last 2.
So December 16th and January 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Alex had come in and paid for the first one on the
She
December.
paid for the very first
one.
market.
Okay.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, that's.
And
I
so
think
when
that's-
she paid, was it $25 just for that day, or was she charged for the day before and the day after for cleanup?
I believe she paid for 2 days.
For 2 days for setup
For
and
Saturday
then
and
event.
Sunday. Yes.
And she was charged the resident fee of $25 a day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the open to the public, because if it's a closed event, it's double the price, but the open to the public is less.
So it was $50 for 2 days
Yes.
to set up?
Okay, so, let's move on to the rest of the night, but if you can do that for us,
Okay.
and I'll put this topic back on the agenda for the next select board meeting. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. To
I
really
guess I'll-
discuss it, and maybe there will be some kind of an agreement between what you're willing to give us and what the board will accept.
Or more in the budget to maintain that huge building that's freezing every day, and the pipes are freezing.
It's
You know,
not good.
I don't mean to get alarmed, but, I mean, the pipes are frozen again, and people are using it. It's not, they didn't freeze because you're using it. It's freezing because there's no heat in there.
Right, there's something
Even if we
wrong.
gotta just heat the underneath, I mean, that's part of the maintenance of that building, whether anyone's renting it or.
Right, I don't think
It costs a lot of
that's
money.
a problem from the group, that the pipes are frozen again. We've had this for years. So, we keep trying to figure out what the answer is.
Okay, so, yeah, we should, you've got somebody working on the plan.
Right.
Okay. Pat, that's okay with you?
To do it on next?
Yeah, if you get that stuff for us, we'll get it back, and I think that the mood of the community, subjectively, we all like to see it. We can take a look at the money if there's some fuzz factors. The idea of seed money makes sense to me. Okay. Any further questions, comments? Should we move on? The next item of business is Melissa's request for a new computer for field work. And who's going to speak to that?
Yeah, if you recall, a few meetings ago, I introduced this topic. There are two needs that this would solve. One need is we've been looking to try to put a computer in the town clerk's office for, number one, for the public, mostly for attorneys who need to do research and can do that research then use his computer to, because we're now, probably in our 10th year of putting in computerized land records, and now attorneys are looking for the ability to look at those records online rather than have to go through the index cards and the like. And there's also a need for any organization who would like to use our agreement with ArcMap and ArcGIS to be able to use the computer. I know we had some requests in the past from the Planning Commission to use a computer for mapping reasons. So if we were to purchase this new computer / tablet for the listers, we would then move one of the lister computers into the town clerk's office, where it would be available to the public. And then, as I said, this computer would then be used by the listers to go out into the field and have their information right in front of them. I know in the past, when a lister would come to a house, they would look and say, geez, was that addition put on this year, or was it put on last year? Or was this shed there last year and not this year? And they would have to then take a note of that, go back to the office and see if it was on the computer. Instead, we would be able to just pull it out, see whether that addition was really there or whether that shed was there last year or not. One of the problems we have in this town is we don't have zoning. And because we don't have zoning, we don't require people to come in and tell us that they're going to put an addition on their house or that they're going to build a shed. So this is a tool that we would be able to use to keep our database updated. Now the cost, as I told you, the last time was about $1,400. That would be for a Microsoft Surface and a bunch of other accessories for that, including a 3-year extended warranty. The Surface is a tablet / computer. It's a real computer using a real Intel processor and the like. So that and the cost of this would not come out of your general budget, would come out of the reserve account for office equipment. I think there's about $24,000 in that reserve account right now. So that's where the money would come from.
Anybody have questions?
Yes. I guess I'd ask Sarah, you don't ever let anyone use your computer or Terry's computer?
No.
They're inaccessible,
I
right?
have one lady that asked me to print a grant or grantee
Right.
report, but no one else. They just use it's all in the book now. Anything that's in the computer is in the book. It's not in the card catalog. So they just flip through the book, find the name, and it's right there.
So attorneys working by the hour, it would be an upgrade to the office and get them in and out quicker.
Possibly. I mean, this was a request that was given to me prior to Sarah by Pam. She wanted to have a computer in there. So that was what kind of initiated this request in the past.
How much is that computer that would go in the office?
That was actually a high-end computer purchased because it was doing an ArcMap.
Right.
So that was about a $2,000 computer. We would still use that computer to do ArcMap work.
In the clerk's office?
Correct.
Package, Hannah.
Aren't the land records available online? Can't you do a search? No, you didn't, okay.
Not that I'm aware of, but I think it's all just in Denver.
Okay.
You have a question?
I would just affirm that the Planning Commission would use the GIS software if it were more available out in the town clerk's office. We do mapping from time to time.
The GIS software is those stuff that's loaded on their computer, correct?
Right,
They're only in there 1 day a week.
right. That's
not
what's-
possible the other
That's
4
what
days?
has made it difficult in the past for us to
You want it the
use.
same day they did.
The person with those skills was not available on the same day that the computer was available, but to have more flexibility with that would allow us to do better work.
We had a conversation, and you may have been fairly part of it, around the issue of how much does the town make from the lawyers coming in and doing this work? Are they charged?
Yeah, they're charged for copies and their time.
They're charged for the time and their costs.
$2.
Yeah, it's
I
$2
don't remember how
an
much it
hour.
was.
$2
Wasn't
an
that
hour.
part of
dollar
the
copy.
open meeting business, was that, those two things together, they wanted to change or relieve the fees for providing the land records, and then we got to keep it.
I
So
don't-
there is a fee, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's
But it comes, I guess what's clicking in my brain is we're talking about spending money that funds our office. We give you money so they come in and they aren't then paying for them. So it's like, why are we robbing our clerk to make the lawyers faster?
Wouldn't they still have to pay?
They still have to pay the
They
fee.
still have to
Not if
pay
they're
for the
online.
copies.
Now, if they get online,
Well, they're gonna have to print the copies.
if they're online.
But it's
they
not
print them out
online,
themselves.
it's not the internet, it's on our
Right,
database
it's
here.
ours.
Right.
So they don't,
It's only in memory.
so they
It's
still
not
need to print it out.
on Google.
We get the money
They still
faster.
need to print it, right?
It's probably, it's not a lot of money exchange. I'm just thinking in the concept of how that's gonna.
They would still have to print it, so we'd still get the revenue.
Hmm?
They would still have to
So
print
you
them,
can
so we'd
charge them.
still get the
So
revenue.
you're charging for the page.
Yes.
Well, not just the page, but the fee
Yes.
and printing.
Two-part. Do the lawyers have access to the data on the computer?
No.
No, okay. If this computer is open to the public, does it endanger privacy requirements?
No, that computer would be hooked up to the network, but it would have a separate user password that would be restricted to only be able to access certain things. They would have a domain password, which the domain would control what they have access to.
That would have to be very carefully watched.
Other questions? Any questions?
How would that work out in the field? Where do you get your signal from? There-
We don't get a signal. What we would do is load the database onto this computer.
Oh,
And it wouldn't be the live database, it would be a copy of that database that we would take out in the field with us.
So you're not really able to manipulate out there.
We cannot add to it, but what it does allow us to do is to see whether our database has this particular shed or addition on it.
Let me understand, I'm doing the double here, because that's kind of my job. So if you're out there and you look at a building, you go over to Fraser's house, and you say, look, he just added an addition. And you look at the computer, and it says, oh yeah, it's not there. Versus, he's got an addition, you drive 2 blocks, oh, it's not there. So we're talking about spending $1,500, you're gonna drive either way anyhow.
yeah, but that's 4 houses away.
No, I'm not using that as an example. My point is, when you're out there and you take a look at it, you say, let's check this out, you write the address down, you go back to the office. You punch in the computer, say, oh, it's not there. You still go back to the office, because nothing can be done, so you go back to the office. So we're.
Well, we have to decide whether to measure that shed or not,
Yeah.
or whether to measure that. So if we don't know whether or not it's a new thing, we're either gonna go out and measure it and waste our time, or we're gonna go back to the office and say, oh, it's gotta be measured, we gotta go back and measure it. So this way, we look on the computer and say, oh, that shed's never been there. Take out our tools, measure the shed, and now we take notes on, we have these sheets that we would fill out and bring it back to the office and then type it in. So that's how how it would work.
So you save the trip by virtue of the fact you could go out and measure it right then.
Correct.
You don't need to ask permission from the owner?
They can kick us off the property.
Or should you?
Generally, we don't ask permission to measure the shed.
Yeah.
We ask permission to go inside if we wanted to take a look at the inside of the building.
But some of those questions you may have questions about the inside.
Then
In the
we make a request to them either by phone or by letter, asking them for permission to be given inside access.
But I mean, once you get in there, once you get inside, you may see something that,
Right. What we're looking for when we go inside is the quality of construction, more so than anything else. How many bathrooms they have, how many kitchens they have, things like that.
Would that also be on your computer?
Right now, for whatever information was collected during the last reappraisal, yes, that's on our computer, would be on our computer.
You're with us.
Lou, if you had a laptop that you could take in the field, could it then also be synced up with the regular database? Because it sounds like the tablet can't sync up.
No.
But if
Well,
you
no,
had a
no,
laptop,
it's-
would
no, no. I mean, we could design a network to make that happen, but, given the poor connectivity out in the rural part of the town.
No, but I'm saying, once you came back to the office, that you could just plug in your computer to you'd be back on the network, and so you wouldn't have to re-enter the stuff from the tablet.
I talked to the company about that. They haven't got that kind of sophistication yet. We'll be merging 2 databases, and they don't have that capability.
So your tablet.
It wouldn't matter whether it was a tablet or a laptop or whatever.
So would the process of this, if I understand it, would be to take the envisioned Microsoft tablet and download the database on it, go out there and have access to the database, like what you just said, and then come back, any revisions, whatnots.
Right.
I mean,
And the idea is to do a number of buildings in one day.
Right.
We would set up a route, like all down Pikes Falls Road. We would check every one of the buildings along Pikes Falls Road. We probably would be checking 50 buildings in a day.
Right. So a tablet has a lot of computing capability, and that's where you're then saying you switch the other one out and you use the tablet in the office. Because you can get a laptop for $200 that can download a database on and bring it out.
Right. But this is a true Microsoft Windows 10 machine with it's an Intel i5 processor, quad, for.
But to Pat's point, if you can't interface it here, why not just a tablet? Why not just a laptop for a couple $100 with the information?
Because the program that runs would be using SQL Server, which needs a computer, not a tablet. It would be using a program, it's a real program that we would be using, not just an app. Think of a program versus an app. An app is a pretty simple thing that gets downloaded to a tablet.
Yeah.
This is a program that actually runs on a computer. You need a Windows-based computer to run on.
But any laptop that ran Windows 10 could run it.
Correct. The difference between this and would be either a laptop, which usually goes for around $700 or $800 for that quality for an i5 processor. We're talking about double that cost to be a tablet as opposed to a if you've ever tried to use a laptop in a car, you know how that works. Laptops just don't work well in cars. The tablet, you're using your fingers and
A laptop that opens up back to back.
and you're sitting on your lap, and you're trying to type.
Part of here's again where my back thought is. You guys are asking us to bump up another. How much actually we're going to ask to have this other company come out and do a lot of the work that's going to be done for the listers.
Oh, it's about $3,500. I think we budgeted for.
Right. So I guess I'm not clear in my mind how much of what the listers normally do is going to be covered by this company coming out and doing it. And if it's a chunk of what the listers normally do, it doesn't seem to make sense to spend $1,500 to make it easier to do something that somebody else is getting paid to do.
Well, what we pay them to do is to go out and look at properties.
Yeah.
But somebody has to determine which properties we want them to look at. They're not going to look at the whole town. They're only going to look at the 20 or so new properties that have additions. This tool would help us to identify what those properties are, so we could then tell them to go to this particular place and that particular.
So this isn't the one-third process you're talking about of getting these things redone every year,
That's a different process.
which is another expense.
Right. The $3,500 is whether we do that additional process or not. We still need $3,500 to hire this company to come in and look at new properties, either new additions or brand new buildings or commercial properties.
Could I ask the planning commission, would that all you would be able to do on that is mapping, or could the computer moving into the office help you in any other way?
Well, because it would be the only one with the ArcGIS software on it. That's what we would use it for. I mean, we all use our own home machines for
Right.
the other work that we do. We wouldn't be needing any other equipment from the town.
But the person who was trained in the ArcGIS is no longer in the planning commission.
No, she's not, but she's a community person, and we could ask volunteers to do work for anything. That's perfectly within our purview to do that. And the immediate problem has been solved, but I could certainly see occasions where we could use that software. Some of us are minimally trained in it, but my skills are pretty meager. I would rather have someone who's more used to using the program.
So what's the scheduling conflict? If
I can't speak to that because the person who had the conflict isn't here right now. But we're
they're limited to one day?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, the only day it was free was a day that she was not able to.
We
be
felt
able
that
to
we
do
didn't
that
want somebody in
because
our
of
office
product
working on our computers unless we were there. So that's the reason for the
That's
conflict.
what it is.
We just didn't want people to be able to come into our office at any time that they were available and use our computers.
That makes sense.
Any other questions?
I like the idea of the computer, that old one going into the office.
How old is the old one? The old one?
It's about 4 years old, but computers last. I mean,
Right, that's what I was curious.
usually you get hard drive issues, but you don't have to replace the computers. This was a high-end computer. I mean, it was not cheap.
We're still talking average shelf life of 7 years.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic?
So where do we stand?
I move that we allocate the $1,400 for the, I'm not sure of the name of the tablet.
It's a Microsoft Surface. And as opposed to that, what I would specify in your motion is that the financing come from the reserve account as opposed to from the general budget.
I'm not sure what the difference is.
It's money that's already been set aside.
It's not going to come from your 2019
Okay, I got it.
budget. It's going to come from the reserve account.
Right, not the working money, so to speak.
Right, out of your working account, or your operating budget, right?
Right.
Is there other,
Okay, I'll do that.
is there other foreseen uses of that reserve account at this point? I mean, not just for the listers, but for planning commission, for office staff, for copier machines, I mean, what?
Hang on a second, before you go into that, we do have a second to
Oh,
lead
sorry.
into the discussion.
I'll second to
Now
get
the discussion is, we're gonna find out, because part of one of the things we have is a report about what it's gonna cost us to fix the town hall.
There's a specific office equipment reserve account
Right.
versus.
That equipment fund was designed to be able to replace the copy machine and
I
or
got you.
computers or
I was thinking of
printers.
another reserve account.
So my question was, is there any awareness between us in this room that any other use or potential, for this coming year, whether the copier needs to be replaced or there's another Sarah's computer
Yeah,
broke
go
again
ahead,
or
Sarah.
something?
Terry said the copier is getting old. It
Right.
works fine.
Yeah.
My computer, the hard drive just went, but it was replaced, and both of our computers, I believe, are 7, 8 years old, mine and Terry's. So,
Yeah, we just replaced the hard drive on yours.
yeah, but I'm nice to it, so it should last a long time.
Besides, it took you a long time to get it back up, so you saved all that
I
time.
know.
I'm just trying to anticipate that there might
Sure,
be something
yeah.
more urgent in the fund at this point, but
Could be,
it's hard.
nothing on the horizon.
Yeah.
That's the problem with computers. I mean, weeks before hers, she went to work, she went home, it was fine, she came to work, it was dead.
Yeah.
So we really, that's the nature of electronics.
I have a question, but you just said, voting for this is going to have an impact on the town hall?
No, I was thinking in terms of where we're gonna draw extra money for that.
Okay.
I've still got this
I
whole
have
budget
that-
in my head.
I have that money in my budget.
We're good. That's
Okay.
why I'm trying to figure out all the different little pockets.
Okay.
I do not want to get started funding something and then look over my shoulders, ah, geez, I forgot about that. But I'm trying to remember all these things at once, and let's face it, my memory's all that great. That's why I write
This
things
reserve account can only be used for office equipment. I will say though, to answer your question, the last time we bought a copier, it was about, I think, $8,000. And I would suspect a new copier would be probably the $10,000 to $12,000 range.
Yeah. We can do some nurse it. All right,
If we
so
replaced every one of the computers right now that we have, it would probably be about a $10,000 item.
okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Did you have all the information? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to support the request for the listers computer, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Sounds like 3. That motion carries.
Just, Should that motion have included that the other computer goes into the office, or?
I don't think we need to talk, I don't think we need a motion about where we move our equipment, just to purchase them.
Right.
Alrighty then. Moving on to the next item. This has come up in the backward, just came up the other day, a week or so ago. I was not aware that exactly how much it was costing our health officer to perform his duties. Now, I know the current health officer don't want to talk about it because he's a nice guy and shy, but after 9 years of this gig, he's getting a little tired of it.
Wow.
Right? Is that an incorrect statement?
I didn't say that.
No, but I'm interpreting it. The point is that there's, in recent years, been some changes, has there not? And the requirements.
Yeah, it's just lately.
Yeah. So I think that I'd like to see a stipend for the health officer in this next budget, and I would like it to be the same as the constable.
I'd just like to speak to, I serve as your health officer now, and in September, that term will be up. It's an appointed position. You don't have to, you can be just a Jamaica resident. It's actually how I segued into other entities of town government. Became interested in, I went to a few select board meetings just to find out about the health officer and things like that. And so anyway, I'll just read a quick description of what the health officer does. And the health officer in Vermont position has been around since the beginning of Vermont government. I don't have the dates, but just the role of the town health officer is conducting an investigation upon receipt of information regarding a condition that may be a public hazard. That's the first one. I won't read them all, but the third one is preventing, removing, or destroying any public health hazard or mitigating any significant public health risk in accordance with provisions and titles from the state. And I really can't do anything rash like that or anything severe without the approval of the Jamaica Board of Health, which is the select board. But recently, and it's a gray area really, they're trying to help us with a new manual that's coming down and some new trainings, webinars, and then some actual trainings or seminars that will happen. But now if I get a call and I take it and I meet the person, whether it's a failed leach field or a septic system or more likely than not a rental or a home inspection, I have to follow through and I have to follow the new 12-page sheet that makes me, I'm obligated to go all the way through and address all of those questions in the sheet instead of, in the past, there's been tenants who were afraid to tell their landlord that their sewer was leaking down into the road, or they're afraid they were going to get kicked out. I was able to, take down that report, fill out an informal report, and get in touch with the landlord, and he fixed it without having to do all the other things, and kind of like got it settled without making a huge deal out of it. So that's no more. And it's unclear on who you have to file with. Some towns have to file with the clerk, they have to file with the state, and I know I'm obligated to give a copy to a tenant, the landlord, and have one for myself, of course. But there is an awful lot of responsibility with this, and I'm in the middle of a rental inspection now, and I've had to order special test kits, which the state has, they're gonna comp us those. But I have to wait for those, and then I've gotta take 3 different kit samples, wait for that to go out, then I'm gonna have to wait to go over the results with the water person in Burlington, and she'll explain that to me, so I can explain it to the landlord and the tenant. Now, I'm not complaining about it, but I think, nor am I looking for any compensation, because I'm almost done. I know that I could ask for mileage and things, because some of these can be back and forth. But I think that if someone else was to take it, I think that they should be compensated a fair, well, some amount of money. It wouldn't scratch the surface really, but the select board is in the same boat. Planning commission, you know, they put in a lot of time uncompensated. I don't know what the number should be. Not to jump around, but I know that our constable, I think he gets $250 a year, $250, but he spends an awful lot of time with dogs. Never mind what other. He doesn't tell us everything he does. So I think that should be put in just for the next person as not a hook really, but it might ease the pain a little bit or entice them to become more interested. And as far as performing the duties, the manual's clear. If you follow the forms, there's help from the Department of Health. There's plenty of people to call. You shouldn't have to get in the middle of things if you just stay the course. It's actually, if you've got the time, it's very rewarding. A couple of really good things I've been able to have a hand in resolving. So I didn't really talk about it when we were doing the budget because I wasn't sure what a fair number would be, and I'm not asking that we sort that out now, but just take it into consideration when I do rotate out of this. There should be something, and mileage maybe. Jamaica goes quite a ways up in the window. I found myself what I thought was window several times. It was Jamaica. It was like 12 miles from my house, so 24 miles round trip. Anyway.
Well, I think the stipend ought to be in addition to the mileage. I think we should be putting in the mileage as well. So it would be the stipend plus mileage.
But now once you start, you're committed.
Yeah.
So it's easily going to be 12, 14 hours of commitment to see this through. And I have to leave work sometimes to get a signal, set up appointments to get the lady from the state to connect. This one's been real fun with that. But other than that, it's a rewarding position, and it really does take a lot of, probably our taxes would be more if the state had to come down, the A&R had to come down and resolve all these. They're not piddly things, but they're things that the state is grateful that we do, that the town health officers do. Some towns have a healthy stipend. Some towns have a full-time health officer with a bigger population. I could go on and on, but if you're interested in it, we have a deputy health officer who, if there's a conflict, he can do it, or she can do it. And the neighboring health officers in the different towns have been a great help. So that's all I really wanted to say about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. We have to put that into if I understand this correctly, we have to put it on the agenda for the March meeting because it's a new
Town meeting?
town meeting. Yeah. So what we'll do tonight, if we would, is take a vote on whether to create a stipend for the health officer, and then we can, as a budget team, decide exactly how much in a different setting. We don't have to do that right now.
Could we decide at that town meeting?
Theoretically, sure.
Would that start then July 1st?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, start with the new budget.
Well, the position ends
In
in
September.
September.
But it would start with December, July, so you could go on vacation on this $200. So I entertain a motion to create a stipend for the health officer.
A
I
motion
so
to.
moved.
I'm sorry.
I've got a motion? Do I have a second? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
can't second it.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion.
I think I forgot what I was gonna say. No more discussion.
Oh, is that what you were gonna say?
No.
More discussion.
So I have another discussion.
Yeah.
Not sure why we would want to have the amount set at the town meeting, why we wouldn't come up with it and then have that there, just like the constables. It's already behind the scenes.
Correct, I think we would have it in the budget, but the item itself, even though we have it in the budget prepared to go forward,
Mhm.
I think the opening has to be in the town meeting, and we could have it in the budget already.
Right, okay.
And then if it's disapproved, we line it out. But I think it's
I
easier.
know I'm in a motion, but along those lines, I think that the constable's stipend needs to be looked at some point.
That could be something.
They're run together here, some kind of.
So we can do that with the
He's
budget.
elected though.
That is different,
But
yeah.
anyway,
So it would become a new line item.
For the stipend
officer.
for the health officer.
Right.
The constable's already in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're discussing, we're making a move to create a line item for the stipend of the health officer. We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I hear 3 ayes, the motion carries. Good. Alrighty, next on, holy cow. These are secret. My spelling is of no interest. The next item is, we had some discussion about repairs for the town hall.
Right, we do.
You're on.
And I have two bids.
Before you open this, let's give some, just for the camera, background.
We have the Preservation Committee or Preservation Organization of Vermont come yearly and inspect our building, with the town hall. And it has been a number of years that it has received what they consider an A1 grade for its outstanding building and what we have done with it through the years. It actually started, I think, back in 1840, something like that. Has quite a history to it. And every year, Meg Campbell, who is our person who inspects, comes and looks at the building, and we were told that we had different things that needed to be done. Some of them have been accomplished. But one of the things that I found from different people talking to me about the issue is that we have a major problem in sill sinking into the ground. And it is in the one that I originally learned about was the sill that is on the back left-hand side of the building. And because the foundation, there is no basement. We're on a rock foundation, of course, being an 1840 building, that's how they were built originally. And the sill is causing the building to shift, and the sill is broken. So with that knowledge, we know that we have to have that fixed in order to maintain our top quality A1 number for the historical nature of the building. So with that in mind, I have been able to get 2 estimates, or I guess is that the right word? Estimates from builders who would be able to do it. I tried to get 3, but shook the bushes and could not find anyone's. But I think that these are pretty good. So I have 2 of them. And the first one comes from the Chris Parker, who is basically a historical person who does renovations and repair on historical buildings. And he has given me this structure, the sill. Do you want me to read what will be happening, or is that sufficient?
Probably a good idea, because we're going to compare the two, right? Yeah.
What's the details are?
Yeah, yeah.
So the structure, the sill would be support, floor structure, and outside wall. If you can get it in your head where we are, it's on the left back of the building, just before this concrete steps and that single door. So that's the section I'm talking about. Remove existing clapboards, 3 rows up from bottom, skirt, board, and sheathing. Remove approximately 25 linear feet of rotten sill. Number 4, install pressure-treated materials for new sill. 5, install 3/4 inch pressure-treated plywood as sheathing. Install, this is 6, pre-primed skirt board and clapboards. And number 7, all project debris removed from the property. And the cost from Chris Parker is $5,550. Second bid comes from Stuart Parker. Let's see what this is. Actually, he has sent his bid in 2 sections, because in his inspection of the sill that I was just talking about, he also inspected completely around the building, and he is, I'll read what he has written about this one. Remove and replace back left section of sill approximately 25 feet. This estimate includes state of Vermont construction permit, which is required. The estimate includes new trim and clapboards as needed. This estimate includes painting of the replaced trim and clapboard to match the existing. This estimate includes waste disposal of all debris. And then he puts this stipulation: this estimate does not include the heavy lifting or jacking of the structure to straighten or level the walls and floors. The new sill will be installed to hold the walls in their current position. So, in other words, he's not going to be what's the word? Lining up the sill so that it will still be in a tilted.
Just fixing it.
Yeah, which is basically what the other one is. Now, that is for $3,400. However, in the process, he also looked at the second side from the stairs to the front of the building, which is actually a much larger piece. And in the process, he has also stipulated that this needs to be replaced also. And by doing, his suggestion is that by doing just the 25 front or back room, that we really should be doing the whole side. So all that I read about just now of what he will be doing, has given us a price for the 46-foot, which is a much larger piece, and that is $6,700. So the total, if we choose, would be $10,100. We do have in our budget this year up to $20,000 for the work on the outside. So we have 2 bids to deal with. One for the 25 and the second one for the 25, and then a third bid for doing both at the 10,000. I strongly recommend, you can look at that if you want to. I strongly recommend, first of all, the Stewart Barker bill is less money than the Chris Parker bill. But I strongly recommend that we have the full side done. It fits within the money that we have set aside. And by doing just one piece and letting the other one go, I think is false economy, that we should go ahead and do the entire left side. Stewart also looked at the front and said that the front is in better shape. It does not really need any fixing at the moment. And I gather that the right side of the building has been done fairly recently or within a while. So that's my recommendation. If the board just wants to go with the 25 feet, so be it. I don't agree with that, but that would be the, I don't know what the number is.
5,500.
Yeah, 55 and what is it, 30?
34.
34.
When you read Chris's bid, I was thinking to myself, well, that's good, that's all he found.
Yeah,
Because, you know, those guys, that's what they, I'm familiar with both of them.
right.
And I was glad to hear that's all there was.
He only looked at that.
That's all you asked him.
That's all I asked him to do. So, but even so, his bid is still
Oh, no.
higher, yeah.
So I can't remember the person's name from the preservation.
Meg Campbell.
Okay.
Yes.
Did she do an assessment of needs throughout the building? Or
Oh, yes,
so there was a checklist or whatever you want to
Yes.
call it of other things?
right.
Was this,
Actually, I
I
have.
mean, I'm not denying this is absolutely, it needs to be done, but was there a priority list or other things or how did we
Yeah,
get
one
to
was,
this point?
one was the roof leakage.
Mhm.
And according to what she said, she does not feel that there is a leakage, that basically the interior painting is the issue, that it's peeling off. And I know we've had a request for sanding of the interior flooring.
Mhm.
But I think our focus right now needs to be in the stability of the building itself.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's other stability type things that we weren't looking at, and now we're talking about.
And that's why Stewart,
He did the whole 360.
he did 360.
And other things like insulating the basement or other maintenance in generals. I mean, I'm not denying this is absolutely important, but just to
Mhm.
categorize, prioritize.
No, I
seems like
haven't.
We're looking at this just as one thing and that there's maybe a bunch of things.
Does she know about this?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason why I had to open up Stewart, he had put it in a sealed envelope, Chris Parker did not, is that I had to tell her, she's like our oversight of this building because we are a preservation building. She needs to look at the bids to see if it meets her standards. And so I had to send both of these to her, so
And
she's
she's
gotten
agreeable
them.
with them.
I've not gotten a word back from her, but she indicated to me that regardless of what the numbers were, that it needs to be done.
And there was an RFP that went out for these, or was there, I mean, when you mentioned a committee, the president, not just her, but you, and was Tom on the? I mean,
No, it's
okay.
just me. I'm the identified.
Yeah, this falls in the purchasing agreement under, we needed allegedly 3 bids, but we don't have to go to an
Right,
RFP.
right, right. Okay.
And
Well,
we
yeah,
asked Judy to try to find
And she
someone.
couldn't- that's what she got.
Yeah.
No, I know, you love.
2 good bids.
Two good guys.
Yeah, right, I think we really hit the jackpot.
They're two good
on
outfits.
two.
Yeah, sure. Rebecca?
I'm not a construction expert, but in my experience dealing with old buildings and sills, the underlying cause is usually bad drainage. And I was wondering if any of the estimates or even Meg Campbell addressed that issue, or if she deemed it to be a factor.
I think that we would have heard from both of the people who bid whether there was a problem with water. And it's a stone foundation. And I actually lived in a house where I had a stone foundation because the house was built in the early 1800s and the water goes nicely through the stone. Just goes right through.
I have one like that.
But moisture is also condensation, it's not just.
Can be, yeah.
Well, the fact is, it's rotten.
Yeah.
It is.
40-something feet of
Right.
rotted, so.
Yeah, well, 20, if we go the route 25 and 46,
Yeah.
the total, and that total bill would come in under our, at 10,100. So I strongly would recommend that we go for the two, the whole side being done.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
Can I make the motion?
Sure.
All right, I move that we use Stuart Barker's bid of 10,100 to do the two sections, one being 25 feet and the second being 46 feet on the left-hand side of the sill structure of the town hall.
Did you get all that, Sarah? Sarah's got it. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
I can't vote.
You can't vote?
No, I work with Stuart.
Oh,
Because what?
I work with him.
well, there's still four of us.
Okay.
All in favor of giving the bid, accepting the bid from Stuart Barker, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Make the third one. Yep.
Great.
Two good guys, really good at what they do.
Yeah, they are both good. We're lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky to have them.
Stuart's very, very thorough.
Very
Yes.
thorough. Very thorough.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So that's gone to,
Great.
Another point on this?
I just have a question with that, because in the town meeting, it was allocated 20,000 for, you know, some major upkeep. What are you thinking will be the remainder of that balance? What is that going to be used for?
I have no earthly idea. Maybe we can do some of the things that are in the interior piece. For example, if,
Insulating those pipes.
yes, that
Well,
would
if I
be
did,
a really good idea.
Is there a time frame for this? Is that going to impact any of the events that are going to be taking place at the town hall in the spring and summer?
Yes, it has to be done by July 1st, or else we lose our money.
so we'll need to coordinate with Stuart.
Yeah,
We may,
I don't think, it may not bother anything. Really.
if it
It's
works
not
out,
gonna be doing that at night.
right.
People will just feel lifted.
Right.
since it's-
Yeah, they
No
look
lifting,
back.
that's
it's
out of
an
the bid.
uplifting experience. The thing though is, the way these bids sometimes work, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart's a very, very busy guy.
He
He
is.
may not be able to get to it within a July timeframe, but once you've contracted with him,
Yeah.
that contract has to be before the 1st of July.
He told me that he could get
Oh,
to
he
it
could?
before the 1st
Oh,
of July,
there we go.
but not immediately.
Sure. But anyway, as long as we get started with it, with contract with him,
Yes.
and he gets moving, get started before the 1st of July, I think that is.
Yeah.
Excellent, okay.
So I don't know what the board wants me to do with the remaining 9,000.
Well, you don't have to make it, you have to think of it as a challenge to spend.
I know.
Well, can we go with?
Sounds like I got a challenge already.
Yeah,
What
no,
Andy was suggesting too, I mean, we're gonna get the water fixed immediately just to thaw it out,
we need
but
to look at
let's get
that.
somebody who's gonna look at what might be
Yeah.
involved
Efficiency
with.
Vermont might come and look at it in terms of
Yeah.
perhaps foaming
Yes.
the inside of the.
What was that?
Make a little room.
Foaming the inside of the foundation.
Could be some
Rather
grants
than
available
the
for
other
that,
kind of
too.
insulation, or paper or whatever.
Who's the outfit that you were,
It's part of Efficiency Vermont.
Yeah, Efficiency
So a
Vermont.
special program they had for homeowners called Button Up Vermont, which is
Right.
what I was passing out information about. But Efficiency Vermont, I'm sure would be able to advise the town on really cost-efficient ways of doing
You
that.
get a connection, you could bring them in and have a look?
I can certainly find somebody.
Well, bring them to me and I'll
Sure.
follow up on
I
it.
can do that.
Super. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I had a conversation earlier this week or last week, sometime, about a possible noise curfew for the town hall activities. In that, apparently one of our town hall activities ran well beyond midnight in a very apparently jubilant fashion. Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify that it was a private event.
I was going to point that out.
Thank you.
Yes, you guys are never that jubilant, at least past midnight. Yes. No, it was a private function. And we looked at the paperwork, and we don't have anything in there that says keep the noise down after 11 or something like that. No, it's not in there. So there's no prescribing that sort of control. I would offer a suggestion that we consider 11 o'clock seemed like a reasonable time to cut off the band or whatever was going on that was so noisy until midnight and change. What's the feeling of the?
No, I don't think we need a noise ordinance in Jamaica.
That ordinance, a comment on the sign-out sheet for this particular facility, for the town hall.
That's how it all starts.
Then it came for the rest of us. I'm just thinking that if you got a party, I mean, this is downtown.
We
Maybe
do
not.
have, I mean, I'm assuming it's a usage agreement, it's not just a, yes, I'd like to, you know.
It's the usage agreement.
So they agree to something, clean it up, lock the door,
And
whatever.
keep the noise down after midnight, or after 11.
But that's
So
not.
right, and I see that that's fitting to put that in there.
Yeah, I don't want a noise ordinance.
Whether it happens or not, that's different. That's out of our control.
How's that?
Have to call the cops if they're making noise after 11 o'clock.
Oh, heck no, she's got a,
She's got a
Cattle prod?
no. She wants one, she keeps
Taser?
requisitioning one.
Stun gun.
No, there's a, help me.
Stun gun.
What?
Stun gun.
No, they're giving you money in case it needs to be cleaned. What's it called?
Damage.
Damage.
Security.
If they violate after 11 o'clock, they don't get their damage deposit back.
But that's not damage.
Well, it should be
It's community.
defined it differently, not to be damaged, but
Right.
security.
But
you
it's
know,
security deposit. If
some-
you're violating the agreement, you don't
If you
get your money
don't
back.
adhere to the
Then
agreement.
that would have to be in the agreement.
Then you'd have to give it to the
Right.
people that are complaining
Exactly.
anyways.
So the agreement that she now has, we're going to add a paragraph within the agreement saying that noise restrictions after 11 o'clock.
My neighbor used to just invite me to all the parties.
That's the other thing. Put in to invite Joel to all the parties or control yourself.
Yeah. I think there should be probably more than a noise agreement, there should be
I
a
probably would solve it.
time frame that they're signing out for use of the building.
Well, that could be, but if they're being quiet after midnight, I don't. Well, let's talk, but that's the point. We're just thinking about keeping it to a minimum.
Can't the Arts Council sort that out? What you guys have?
Well, it's our property and we're,
Yeah, it's our property.
Do you have some ideas about an agreement though you could give to us?
She's not making the noise.
Yeah, like I said, it was a private event, it was somebody's birthday party.
Right.
yeah.
And I guess ours generally don't go that late.
So
Oh, that's much fun.
Different kind of fun.
And you own a liquor store. You should be able to buy.
Sure, I lived here 35 years
And
ago.
buy liquor until midnight.
There we go.
There you go. No, I
Just
think there should be a usage agreement that's pretty well defined on when they get in there, when they leave, and it's not a matter of they're making noise, I think. Do we want somebody in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, even if they're quiet? Probably not.
Probably not. But if they can't make any noise after 11, they're not gonna hang around until 4.
But if they rent it for 24 hours.
They
and
may
you
be
say
in
you
there
have to
cleaning
stop
it, so
by
you don't have to go back the
11,
next day.
you rip them off an hour.
You just have to stop making noise by 11.
But we're trying to,
I'd be sleeping, so it doesn't matter.
So anyway-
It's a makeout party then anyway, so.
do we as a board think that arbitrarily, I say 11 o'clock, could be anything, should be a time restraint on noise written into our current agreement?
I believe so. And not specifically just for noise. I think there should be a time frame when somebody signs the building out and they gotta be done with it.
Well, that comes up to another issue, because do we give them time to clean it up before they leave?
That's why.
They party till 11 and clean till 2?
Actually, a lot of people come back the next morning.
Well, that costs them
Clean
another
up.
day if they just finish it
Yeah.
up for the day before they go home.
I guess when you rent out the depot, do you have a set time that people have to be out of there?
No.
Well, there's two sides. First of all, it's your building, so you can make whatever arrangements you
Well,
want.
no, that.
People
the
have to
building-
be willing to rent it for your rules.
Right, and so we're a nonprofit that owns the depot building, so when there, we rent it out for public functions. And-
But it's not a public building, so you can dictate the terms.
Sure,
Right.
but as the town, we can dictate the terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just do a little piece of it, because we've got the rest of the winter to go through. Do we want to, do we as a group want to restrict the time to say 11 o'clock, or do we want to restrict their occupancy?
I don't want, I'm not gonna weigh in on any of that.
Just
Noise,
restrict
noise or
it.
anything.
Just restrict the noise till 11, and let them finish up when they want.
If they get too noisy, the cops can come.
Cops don't have a
How often is that gonna
I
happen?
see what's gonna happen is someone's gonna say, well, we weren't noisy, we're in there from 4 o'clock in the morning, we weren't noisy, but if it's summertime and the windows are open and somebody just sees someone chatting,
Yeah.
that's noise.
Yeah,
So I think you gotta be done.
The cops can only
And
come.
then who's gonna say they were being noisy, call the cops? I mean,
The
who's gonna
cops-
make that call?
Backing up though, the cops need an ordinance to enforce.
Yeah.
We don't have an
No,
ordinance.
they don't. No, they don't.
You don't
The
think so?
state police
Oh, state
gladly
police.
come on a
Exactly.
noise complaint if they have
Yeah,
anything
because the
else to do.
sheriff department is not available
They're not
after
allowed
10 o'clock.
out after
Midnight.
midnight.
Right, so we have, it will always be the state police.
Hopefully.
that will be
It is
doing it.
sometime within the week.
Yeah, 99% of the
Okay,
people that
that-
have an agreement to say I gotta be out of there by 11 are gonna get out of there by 11, but I think we have to say it.
Say get out by 11?
That's my suggestion.
Out of here by 11 or over?
Let's get out of here before 9.
Well, that's 29, we're working towards the 11. Well, we've discussed the possibility, as is said, do we need to make a decision, or do we want to think about it? Chew it.
You should probably think about it.
Actually, I think to put an 11 o'clock timeframe, you're out of here. I think, you know, parties often run till midnight. I think 11 o'clock, we'll get the reputation, this is an old people's town.
I was thinking, they can stay, they just have to tune the band or the music down a little bit.
I think if anything, that would be it, but to say that you have to end your party by 11 o'clock, I think is,
Yes.
that's where I'm at.
So,
How many complaints?
I've had one.
Not to minimize the one complaint, but there's been, I'm serious, whoever made the complaint, I appreciate you coming to us and telling us. But I think if we get another one or two, maybe we could do something a little more rash, but I'd rather we did nothing.
So we could basically just, we are now aware of it. We've completed the task, we've discussed it. Does not require a motion, does not require a decision, except to not make a decision. We've decided to not make a decision,
Right now. Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll go
That's
with
my
that.
kind of leadership.
I'll go with that one.
Moving on, we have a couple quick things. We have a weight permit.
Yep. What do we want now?
I don't know.
It's from Newport Sand and Gravel for their fleet. They have paid the fee and they have all the insurances. And the regular stipulations are on here. So just need to sign. I need to sign it if it's okay.
Sure. We have a motion?
I move that we accept
For Newport Sand and Gravel.
We have the insurance and we got the check.
sand and gravel, that they be given, what is it called?
A weight permit.
A weight permit.
Shoot.
That's,
Mhm.
yeah, It's just the regular one.
For the year.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
I would, well, this is not for a decision now, but it seems odd to me that one truck going down the road is a $10 fee and a fleet of X number, 100, who knows, is $10 also. It just seems kind of something to be considered moving forward, that there be per vehicle or something in the fleet.
I have looked, or not inquired into a number of towns, but not that we have to do the status quo, but that's usually what the towns do. I think the feeling is that we can raise these weight limits, but that they pay BUCO registrations and insurances.
I think of this fee not as a per vehicle, but as a per transaction fee, because it takes our staff as much time to file and fill out a single vehicle as it does for a fleet of vehicles. Same paperwork, same insurance paperwork. So our time, which essentially is why I see that $10 to compensate for.
And it may be just a going through the motions kind of thing, but it lets us know that they're here too, that they have
That's
to
the
pay
only thing I
some
can see. I
fee,
mean, there's a set
some fee
limit.
and show insurance.
There's a limit for a reason on the weight limits, and if you can get by the limit for $10, oh man, that's easy. It's like, why is there a limit then? Just pay $10. But
I
anyway,
could look into it. Yeah, I think you'll find that most towns, that's what they charge, or somewhere around there. Yeah, I know, when I first was involved in this, I was all for putting the fees way up.
Well, we have two things. If they break something, they pay for it. But the other
Their
thing
insurance
is,
does.
this piece of paper, by going through this, gets a
You
formal
get to
instruction.
collect the
You can't go
insurance.
on many roads, you can't drive after April. and
Yeah, I think it
there's
lays
other
out
stuff in it. Yeah, so it's just
rules.
basically, here's what we want you to pay attention to.
Right.
And they're nice enough to, or,
Most
no,
of them.
they take the time to ask us. I don't know who's rolling through here.
Yeah, and sometimes
Mostly.
we have had in the past where someone
We've had
was
a couple.
way beyond,
Yeah, we've had a
and
couple.
we've had to do something about it.
And that did it all this year.
Done deal.
So do we have a second?
second, I thought I did second, just so I.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you may have. Any further discussion?
You did.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have that passed. Yes, sir, please do that. The next item is Joel want to make a brief, hopefully.
Yes.
Personally, don't want to constrict your
This
creativity.
is for the pleasure of the town. As I've been appointed on the Transportation Committee last year, I worked with the committee very hard to structure a list of proposed projects and managed to keep what Lou had established, which was the Jamaica Bridge in the pipeline. I just saw today the report of what the state intends to do. For town bridges, there were 6 town bridges on the list. Newfane,
Brattleboro, Westminster,
had the first position, and Jamaica had the second position.
Oh, really?
And then there were 4 others. All 4 others were approved. Brattleboro and Jamaica were not.
Oh,
It's arbitrary, there's no reason given, and I think that it would behoove the town to make an issue of this to V-Trans. That bridge
we're
is
talking about the one that's going
the
over.
State Park
Jamaica Bridge,
Yeah.
State Park Bridge.
Yeah.
the State Park
The
Bridge,
State Park.
right.
Yeah, they kind of blew it off.
They just, and they can do it, they can do whatever they want, that's V-Trans, that's the government, yeah. I think that they haven't heard enough from us. And I brought it up at every single meeting, and I continue to bring it up. And at some point, when they say, well, that's it, that's it. But I think that it would behoove the town to approach the legislature about this, to approach V-Trans with a very strongly worded a letter. This bridge brings in $2.2 million a year in revenue.
Yeah.
It is the most popular state park, and it is a very important source for Jamaica. Jamaica is already suffering other damages, but this is a very important source. I think we should exclaim our protest in some way.
Can I get a copy of that?
Yeah, I can have to.
And that surprises me.
Yeah.
Yes, it surprised me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Transportation Committee itself encouraged this. And the chairman of the Transportation, Lou Sorensen, agreed in my surprise and concern about this.
Wow.
I think if we
To the
don't say
point where-
something, we would, because what will happen, apparently it's on the town to fix the decking. It's not a state project because it's not a state bridge.
We did the decking a few years ago, didn't we?
Yeah, well, look at it. Yes, as I'm sure you have. If we fix the decking and do, they have recommended that we paint it and replace some mortar. If you go at a safer time, you look under the bridge.
Yeah, we
The
was-
I-beams don't exist anymore, they're lowercase i's. Now, there's no cross beam. They're all, it looks, at first when I saw it, it looked like leaves. It's all, the metal is all corroded and puckering. If we do some kind of fix to it, it will look like it's fixed, and then it will be forgotten,
Forget it.
because lots of towns have lots of bridges in Vermont, and even in Windham County. And I think the squeaky wheel here will
Yeah, gets listened to.
at least be heard. I've been approaching state legislators in the past. I've sent letters in the past. I think that we should approach V-Trans and tell them our concern for how important this bridge is to Jamaica and to the state of Vermont.
Yeah,
it
because
is-
they have to bring their garbage.
Well,
I
we know.
remember talking about that
We've
years
talked
Oh, we
ago.
have documented.
Lots of reasons.
Yeah, don't
We
they have to
would-
bring it across in small truckloads?
The
and things like
cordwood
that?
and things, yeah.
Cordwood,
Yeah.
firewood, oil
Yeah.
trucks,
Right.
garbage,
Supposed to.
fire trucks
Right.
are all limited by the weight
Yeah.
capacity.
Has it had an engineer look at it and change the
V-Trans
weight?
has
They,
Change the weight limit?
No, the
on
weight
it?
limit's been changed.
yeah, the weight.
changed it, but it's good for 16,000.
So then,
It says 8, but it's rated for 16.
It says 8 tons, I think.
8 ton, whatever,
Yeah,
16,000.
16,000 pounds.
so you need to
But
do
the
something.
Army Corps of Engineers downgraded it for themselves to 8,000 pounds. From what I understand, I had nothing in writing about that.
I did.
You told me, Andy,
Yeah.
that they're not fixing the dam.
Last time I talked with the dam representative, he said that all those projects, those dam projects were on hold.
Oh.
So anyway,
Well, we'll have a bigger lake.
I was at that meeting too, and
Right.
it brought back a lot of work that went into, that Joel did and we did too. I remember showing you the V-Trans inspection,
Right.
and they're sort of minimizing some of it and alarmed about other parts of it, but the last lady who worked, Erica, was she with Wyndham Regional? She basically was telling me the way it goes until that thing falls in the river, they're not gonna fix it for maybe 6 or 7 years. And now it sounds like not at all.
So,
From that committee's point.
well, we can reprioritize again, which we will be doing starting at the next meeting. But V-Trans is not, I'm not V-Trans, Wyndham Regional is not a governing organization, it's just an advisory committee. So, from what I understand, the input from Wyndham Regional is 20% of V-Trans' decision, but it's their choice, so they could say 5%. I think the town really has to step up to this one.
Now, this has been going on for how many years now?
And that's since-
Well, the last inspection was 17, I think,
Right.
2017.
Would the input from the Corps of Engineers have carried any weight?
No.
Because they're asking us what's going on.
Well, they were not helping us.
No. And they were gonna build a temporary bridge for $500,000 with the cost of
Yeah.
Did not let
replacement.
us use it.
Right. And the cost of a bridge itself is $1 million, and I spoke to a lot of people about why can't we get together, and apparently 2 separate pockets with a torso in between. So, There's no way to get the Army Corps to split it, for instance, because it's a town bridge, and technically, the town could take it upon itself to fix it, but that's a big chunk of change for the town to do. So, and V-Trans does fix town bridges upon need. This is also not only a town bridge, this is a state access.
Yeah, and probably the most popular state
The most
park
popular state.
in the state.
Is the state park administration or
There
help? you
They've
do
made
more?
they've made a case.
Yeah, which is good, which will help us if we make a case. But
They can't,
I think the more noise here, the better.
Well, I think that when it comes to the state park and all these others, we have to take the start. We have to start. We have to take it first stand and start. They can then come in to help us out, but they can't start the issue because it's our property.
Right.
But you can ask them to,
But they have complaints, they have legitimate complaints which they have made already. So, that's my 2 cents.
thank you.
Thank you for your 2 cents.
I was at that meeting too,
Yeah.
and it was pointed out to us that it was rare that there's 2 commissioners on the same committee. But anyway, some good news, that paving, the Jamaica Hall Route 30 project is not getting put on so that'll start, does that start radar border?
I thought that started already. I
Oh,
thought
no, they
that-
prepared it, but it'll be paved in 19, this
Okay,
season.
2019. They probably
From-
just stopped because of.
From the first bridge after, what's that road by Bear? What's the place they knocked down there? Dyer Road?
Dyer's.
Past Dyer Road, I think that first bridge
Mhm.
to the turn to go to Manchester. We'll get not just the skim coat, what did they say, the second?
So there's 4 levels.
Middle of
This
the-
is the first level. This is the second level where they'll bring a machine, I'm assuming that. They'll bring a machine and chop up the surface and redeposit asphalt as they go.
Reclaim
But
it.
they won't be ripping up the road bed.
No, it'll be a lot better though.
Okay.
6 years instead of 12.
Well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Anything else that we would like to, we got everybody covered?
I got a public concern.
You have a public, independent of your non-public position,
Independent.
your public concern,
Private
sorry.
position,
Private.
which is, we've heard from you before about, which is the sidewalks, which are buying for.
Which ones?
The ones in town, that little chug machine goes along.
Yeah.
If you don't get to it in time, when it was slush, it freezes, which it did.
You can't do anything with
And
it.
I think it's kind of dangerous to walk on now. We went for a walk the other day and walked in the street because you couldn't really walk on it. And I think it needs the application of some kind of de-icing to get rid of that ice and be there all winter.
No, that's very true, because I was walking in front of the town hall, town hall today, and that's solid ice
Right.
too.
Right.
Even though it has some sand on it, it is still really.
But ice melt, some kind of ice melt is the only way. You're not going to chop it up or plow it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ice melt's only good at a certain temperature range anyhow.
Right.
Do you know if that spreader that's on the back of that, our tractor is working anymore? Because I think it broke for a while.
I can ask Heath.
If there's a
What he
spreader.
thinks about the sidewalk, about treating them if we even can.
Yeah.
I don't know if the new sidewalks, if it would damage them, or I'd find out about all
Right,
that
what we can
because of
use.
the grant.
And we should make the effort though, I mean, it's,
No, even if we
yeah,
throw
I mean, we've
sand
already
on
made the effort to purchase a
You're
machine and
actually
things like
required
that,
to
and we're just,
because of that grant.
yeah,
it, we have to maintain them.
right, yeah. And do
There are
whatever
different
it takes.
kinds of ice melt, some more or less corrosive.
Right.
Some people use beet juice on roads.
Well, the chronic problem that's gonna happen all the time is we've only got 4 guys and the snow's coming down, they're taking care of the
The
roads.
storm is brutal for
And
all
then-
the surrounding
and then-
towns.
And
Yeah.
then, while they're taking care of the roads, the state's putting more on top of the sidewalk. It's always gonna be an issue, but you're correct, we should take a look
We
at it.
understand, yeah.
Yeah.
And but I think like even an opportunity like today, I know that, again, they've got tons of stuff on there
Yeah.
just to take
I don't know if it works at
Keep looking
zero.
at it.
What was it this
Well,
morning?
there's something works. I'm just, like Andy said, I mean, bring it to Keith
Yeah.
and say,
He knows what the temperature is. Okay.
put it back on.
Thank you, public. Anything else? If not, we can actually entertain a motion.
So move
I
that.
have a movement, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, do I hear further? Discussion. None, hearing.
We're relieved. Are you relieved? Are you okay?
Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, we're adjourned at, look at that, 9 o'clock.
Oh, I'm opposed.